There's something happening right now that you might not have the full picture of yet. Someone in your world, someone who's been playing it cool, keeping their distance, maybe even acting like they've got everything figured out, is experiencing something internally that their external behavior isn't matching. And I know you're here because you've felt it. You've sensed the gap between what they're showing you and what's actually brewing beneath the surface. Here's what I want you to understand from the very beginning: desire that's being suppressed doesn't disappear. It intensifies. It finds other routes. It shows up in ways the person themselves doesn't even fully recognize. And right now, this very moment, there's someone who wants you in their life more than they're comfortable admitting, even to themselves. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, if they wanted me, they'd show it. They'd say something. They'd make a move. And I understand that logic. I really do. But human beings are complicated creatures. We're not always brave enough to reach for what we want most. We're not always clear enough to recognize our own desires before they become undeniable. And sometimes, the things we want most are the exact things that terrify us. If what I'm describing resonates with your situation right now, drop a heart emoji in the comments. Let me know you're here, and let's walk through this together. What makes this particular dynamic so intense is that you're dealing with someone who's at war with themselves. Part of them is pulling toward you, strongly, magnetically, consistently. But another part is hitting the brakes, questioning everything, trying to maintain control, attempting to protect themselves from vulnerability. And that internal conflict, it creates a very specific pattern of behavior that, once you understand it, becomes incredibly clear. The truth is, when someone wants you but won't admit it, they don't go silent. They don't disappear completely. They don't move on cleanly. Instead, they do something far more revealing: they orbit. They hover. They find reasons to stay in your peripheral vision while convincing themselves they're maintaining appropriate distance. And these next 50 minutes are about helping you see exactly what that looks like, what it means, and what's coming next. Before I take you deeper into this, I want to acknowledge something important. Some of you watching this are in pain. You're tired of mixed signals. You're exhausted from trying to decode behavior that should be straightforward. You're frustrated that someone won't just be honest about how they feel. I see you. That frustration is valid. And I also want you to know that understanding what's happening isn't about excusing their behavior or asking you to wait around indefinitely. It's about giving you clarity so you can make empowered decisions about what you do next. And if this message is already touching something in your soul, if you feel led to support this channel so I can keep creating these deep dives into the human heart, the super thanks option is right below this video. Your support allows me to dedicate the time these messages require, and I'm genuinely grateful. Here's what we're going to explore together. First, I'm going to show you the specific, tangible ways desire reveals itself even when someone is trying to hide it. Not vague concepts, actual behaviors you can recognize. Second, we're going to talk about why intelligent, self-aware people still struggle to be honest about what they want. Third, I'm going to walk you through what's shifting inside them right now, in real time, that's going to change everything about how they show up. And finally, I'm going to give you the framework for navigating this with wisdom, dignity, and clarity about your own worth. This isn't going to be one of those messages that tells you to just wait patiently, or move on and forget them. Life is more nuanced than that. The human heart is more complex than that. What I'm offering you is understanding, real, deep, honest understanding, of what you're actually dealing with so you can decide what serves your highest good. The person on your mind right now? They're going through something. And what they do next isn't going to be what you expect. It's going to be more revealing than anything they've done so far. Stay with me. Let me paint you a picture of what's actually happening in their world right now, because I need you to understand the internal landscape before we get to the external behaviors. They're functioning. They're going to work, having conversations, making plans, scrolling through their phone, living their daily life. To anyone on the outside, they look fine. They look like someone who's moved on, who's focused on other things, who's living their own narrative that doesn't include you. But here's what's happening underneath that composed exterior. You're the thought that interrupts their concentration. They'll be in the middle of something completely unrelated, sitting in a meeting, working on a project, talking to a friend, and suddenly you're there. A memory surfaces. An imagined conversation plays out. They wonder what you're doing right at that moment. And they have to actively redirect their attention back to whatever's in front of them. This happens multiple times throughout their day. They're scrolling through their contacts list more than makes sense. Opening your message thread and just staring at it. Not typing anything. Not sending anything. Just looking at your name, the history between you visible in text form. Their thumb hovers over your profile picture. They're close to reaching out, and then they close the app. They tell themselves they're being smart, being cautious, protecting themselves. But what they're actually doing is delaying the inevitable. When they're with other people, there's a part of their awareness that's elsewhere. Someone might be talking directly to them and they're nodding, responding appropriately, but internally they're somewhere else entirely. They're in a memory with you. They're analyzing something you said weeks ago for meaning they might have missed. They're constructing elaborate scenarios about what it would be like to just be honest about how they feel. Type "I see it" if you've noticed these exact patterns, the hovering, the hesitation, the way they're present but not fully present. Their sleep is affected, though they wouldn't directly connect it to you. They're either lying awake longer than usual, mind racing through scenarios, or they're waking up earlier, and you're the first thought that enters their consciousness. In those quiet moments when the world is still and their defenses are down, the truth of what they feel becomes undeniable. But then daylight comes, responsibilities pile up, and they convince themselves again that they're fine, that this is manageable, that they're in control. Here's what you need to understand about this phase: they're not indifferent. Indifference looks completely different. Indifference is clean. It's someone who genuinely doesn't think about you, doesn't wonder about you, doesn't have any emotional charge around you one way or the other. What you're experiencing from them isn't indifference, it's resistance. And resistance requires energy. It requires constant effort. It requires them to actively work against something that's pulling at them. And that's exhausting. They might be dating other people, keeping their options open, making sure their social media shows them living their best life. Don't let that fool you. When someone is genuinely over you, genuinely disinterested, genuinely moved on, they don't need to prove it. They don't need to broadcast it. They just quietly build a life that doesn't include you, and you feel the absence of your presence in their world naturally. But when they're still performing, still curating what you see, still making sure certain things reach you, that's not someone who's moved on. That's someone who's still playing to an audience of one. Let me tell you about the conversations they're having with themselves, because this is where it gets really interesting. They're building cases. They're listing reasons why pursuing this wouldn't be smart. They're remembering past hurts, maybe with you, maybe with other people, and using those memories as evidence that protecting themselves is the right choice. They're imagining worst-case scenarios. They're telling themselves stories about your life, your feelings, your availability that may or may not be accurate. They're working overtime to intellectually justify what their heart is resisting. But here's the thing about the heart: it doesn't respond to logic. It doesn't care about your carefully constructed arguments. It doesn't obey your command to feel less, want less, need less. And the more they try to think their way out of what they feel, the more intense it becomes. There's a pressure building. You know how water finds the cracks? How pressure always seeks release. That's what's happening internally for them. Every day they don't acknowledge what they feel, every interaction they keep surface level when something deeper is calling, every time they choose safety over authenticity, it's adding to the pressure. And pressure, beloved, always reaches a breaking point. Now, I want to distinguish something crucial here, because not everyone watching this is dealing with someone who genuinely wants them but is scared. Some of you might be dealing with someone who's just enjoying attention without intention. Some of you might be projecting desire onto someone who's actually just being friendly. So let me give you the difference. Someone who wants you but won't admit it is consistent in their inconsistency. Meaning, they keep showing up in small ways. They can't fully pull away. There's a rhythm to their behavior, they get close, they retreat, they get close again. It's a pattern. Someone who doesn't actually want you will eventually create clean distance. They'll stop responding. They'll stop initiating. They'll stop orbiting. The breadcrumbs will dry up completely because there's nothing genuine pulling them back. Pay attention to persistence. Not grand gestures, persistence. Do they keep finding reasons to be in your world? Do they remember details about your life? Do they show up when things matter? Do their actions, however small, demonstrate that you occupy space in their thoughts? That's the tell. This is so important, stay with me, because what I'm about to explain next is going to shift how you see everything they've been doing. Now let's talk about what they're actually afraid of, because fear is the engine driving all of this resistance. And when you understand the fear, their behavior stops looking like rejection and starts looking like exactly what it is, self-protection that's beginning to fail. There's the fear of being vulnerable first. Of laying their cards on the table and having you not match their energy. Of admitting, I think about you constantly, and hearing, I think of you as a friend. That kind of vulnerability feels like standing naked in front of someone who's fully clothed. It feels like handing someone the exact blueprint of how to hurt you. And if they've been hurt before, and most people have, that fear isn't irrational. It's based on lived experience. There's the fear of disruption. Maybe they've built a life that feels safe, predictable, manageable. Maybe they've convinced themselves they're content with how things are. And you represent something different. Something that would require change, risk, reorganization of priorities. You're not a simple addition to their existing life, you're a catalyst for transformation. And transformation, even positive transformation, is death-defying to the part of us that craves stability. There's the fear of not being enough. They might look at you and see someone incredible, someone who has their life together, someone who could have choices. And there's a voice in their head asking, why would someone like that choose me? They're measuring themselves against an imaginary standard and finding themselves lacking. So they protect themselves from anticipated rejection by never fully showing up in the first place. There's the fear of timing. They might believe, rightly or wrongly, that this isn't the right moment. That they need to have more figured out first. That circumstances need to align differently. That pursuing this now would be premature or complicated. And so they're stuck in this holding pattern, waiting for some perfect future moment that may never come, while the present moment, the only one that actually exists, passes them by. And here's the deepest fear, the one that sits underneath all the others, the fear that if they fully let themselves want you, fully let themselves open to the possibility of building something real with you, and it doesn't work out, they'll be devastated in a way they're not sure they can handle. Because wanting you isn't simple anymore. It's not surface level. What they feel has roots. And roots, when torn up, leave wounds. If you're recognizing these fears in someone's behavior, if this is explaining patterns you've been confused by, type, "This makes sense," in the comments. So now they're stuck. Caught between desire and fear. Between what they want and what feels safe. Between the version of themselves that would be brave enough to reach for you and the version that's mastered self-protection. And that internal stuckness. It creates external chaos. Mixed signals. Hot and cold behavior. Moments of incredible closeness followed by inexplicable distance. But here's what's shifting, right now, in real time, that they may not even be fully aware of yet. The cost-benefit analysis is changing. For a while, the perceived cost of being vulnerable felt higher than the cost of holding back. But now they're starting to realize that holding back has its own cost. The cost of always wondering, what if? The cost of watching you potentially build a life that doesn't include them. The cost of pretending they feel less than they do. The cost of living in the gap between who they are and who they're capable of being. That cost is becoming unbearable. They're noticing how often you come up in their mind, and they can't dismiss it anymore as casual or meaningless. There's a frequency to their thoughts about you that they can't ignore. You're not just passing through their awareness, you're a constant presence. And they're starting to recognize that as significant. As information they need to pay attention to. As their own inner wisdom trying to tell them something important. They're seeing evidence that contradicts their fears. Maybe they catch you looking at them in a way that suggests you feel something too. Maybe there's a moment of connection that's undeniable. Maybe something happens that makes them realize you're not as unavailable or uninterested as they'd convinced themselves you were. These moments of evidence chip away at the fortress they've built around their feelings. They're getting tired of performing. Tired of acting like they're fine when they're not. Tired of pretending they don't care when they do. Tired of the energy it takes to maintain distance from something they actually want to be close to. There's a fatigue that sets in when you're constantly working against your own truth. And they're reaching that point. Someone or something in their life is serving as a mirror. Maybe they're watching a friend be brave in love and realizing their own cowardice. Maybe they're seeing someone else express interest in you and feeling a surge of jealousy that makes their true feelings undeniable. Maybe they're consuming content, music, movies, books, even videos like this one, that's reflecting their situation back to them and making them realize they can't hide from this forever. They're having moments of clarity where they see the situation plainly. Not through the filter of fear, not through the lens of past hurt, not through the distortion of anxiety, just clearly. And in those moments, they know. They know what they feel. They know what they want. They know what they need to do. The challenge is that these moments of clarity don't last. Fear rushes back in, and they retreat again. But each time the clarity comes, it lasts a little longer. It roots a little deeper. It becomes harder to dismiss. Time is doing its work. The initial reasons they gave themselves for keeping distance are starting to feel less relevant. The stories they told themselves are developing holes. The timeline they invented, "I'll deal with this later, when circumstances are different," is revealing itself as procrastination rather than wisdom. They're starting to realize that later might mean too late. Before we go further, if this content is blessing you, if it's giving you clarity you didn't have before, the super thanks button below this video allows you to support this channel. It's how I'm able to keep creating these messages, and I'm truly grateful for every person who's contributed. Now, I want to be honest with you about something, because I respect you too much to sugarcoat this. Not everyone who wants you will ultimately be brave enough to act on it. Some people will let fear win. Some people will let the moment pass. Some people will realize too late that they should have spoken up when they had the chance. That's the reality. And I'm not telling you this to scare you, I'm telling you this so you don't sit in limbo forever waiting for someone else to get their act together. But what I'm seeing for many of you watching this is different. I'm seeing someone who's approaching a threshold. Someone who's running out of road in this holding pattern they've created. Someone whose internal pressure is reaching the point where action becomes inevitable. And what they do next is going to surprise you, not because it's what you've been begging them to do, but because it's going to come from a genuine place within them that's finally stronger than their fear. Here's what you need to watch for. Not the grand romantic gesture. Not the perfectly articulated confession. Not the dramatic moment. Watch for the small, genuine movements toward you. The unscripted moments. The times when they forget to be guarded and you see the real them. The instances where they choose you when they could easily choose something else. The vulnerability that slips through even when they're trying to maintain composure. Watch for them asking deeper questions. Watch for them creating opportunities to spend time with you. Watch for them opening up about things they don't typically share. Watch for them showing up consistently, even in small ways, because consistency is the language of genuine feeling. Watch for them starting to bridge the gap between what they feel and what they show. And here's the most important thing to watch for them becoming more honest with themselves. Because before they can be honest with you, they have to stop lying to themselves. They have to stop pretending they're fine with distance. They have to stop dismissing what they feel as temporary or manageable. They have to stop building intellectual cases against what their heart knows is true. And when that internal honesty finally lands, everything about their external behavior will begin to shift. You're going to notice a change in their energy toward you. Less guardedness. Less performance. Less of the careful calculation about what they reveal. More presence. More authenticity. More willingness to let you see them as they actually are, not as the carefully curated version they've been presenting. They're going to start testing the waters. Small statements that reveal more than they have before. Questions that go beneath the surface. Comments that suggest they've been paying closer attention than they've let on. They're going to start giving you more of themselves, incrementally, watching to see how you respond, building courage based on your reception. Drop a fire in the comments if you're ready to see this shift happen, if you're ready for them to finally align their actions with what they actually feel. And look, I know some of you are thinking, why do I have to wait for them to be ready? Why do I have to be patient with someone who can't just be honest about how they feel? Those are fair questions. And here's my answer, you don't have to wait. You don't have to be patient. You don't owe anyone your time while they figure themselves out. If you've reached a point where their indecision is costing you your peace, you have every right to move forward without them. You have every right to say, I need clarity, and if you can't provide it, I need to create space for someone who can. But what I'm offering you here is understanding. Understanding isn't the same as excusing. It's not the same as accepting behavior that doesn't serve you. It's simply the ability to see clearly what you're dealing with so you can make decisions from a place of wisdom rather than confusion. And sometimes, understanding why someone is the way they are helps you extend grace while also maintaining your boundaries. It helps you recognize that their struggle isn't about your worth, it's about their own internal battle. Now I want to take you somewhere deeper, because what's really happening here goes beyond just one person working through their fear. There's a spiritual dimension to this that I don't want you to miss. When someone wants you but won't admit it, there's often a divine timing element at play. Stay with me on this. Sometimes what looks like someone dragging their feet is actually the universe making sure both people are truly ready. Making sure the lesson has been learned. Making sure the growth has happened. Making sure that when the coming together finally occurs, it's built on a foundation solid enough to hold what's being created. I've watched this pattern play out countless times, two people who are clearly meant for each other, but the timing is off. One person is ready, the other isn't. And the one who's ready goes through this painful period of watching the other person hesitate, retreat, struggle. It feels personal. It feels like rejection. It feels like if they really wanted you, they'd figure it out faster. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that waiting period is doing necessary work in both people. For you, it might be teaching patience. It might be revealing where you give your power away. It might be showing you where you need to strengthen your sense of self outside of any relationship. It might be developing your discernment about what you actually want versus what you think you should want. It might be clearing out old patterns that wouldn't serve what's trying to be built. For them, it might be breaking down false identities. It might be dismantling defense mechanisms that have outlived their usefulness. It might be healing wounds that would otherwise get projected onto you. It might be developing the capacity to actually show up in the way that genuine partnership requires. It might be learning that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. And sometimes, the delay has nothing to do with either person being unready and everything to do with circumstances needing to shift. Other relationships needing to end cleanly. Career transitions needing to happen. Geographic moves needing to occur. Other life lessons needing to be learned. Paths that looked separate needing to converge. Here's what I know to be true, when something is divinely orchestrated, nothing can stop it. Not fear. Not bad timing. Not complicated circumstances. Not past hurt. Not resistance. Not even the person's own best efforts to avoid it. When it's meant to unfold, it will unfold. The question is never whether it will happen, the question is whether both people will be awake enough to recognize it and brave enough to honor it when it does. Type divine timing if you feel in your spirit that there's something bigger orchestrating this situation. But I also need to say this, and it's important: divine timing doesn't mean passive waiting. It doesn't mean putting your life on hold. It doesn't mean accepting crumbs while you wait for someone to offer you the whole meal. Divine timing means trusting that what's meant for you will find you while you continue to live fully, grow continuously, and honor yourself completely. You're not meant to shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable with wanting you. You're not meant to dim your light so they don't feel intimidated. You're not meant to play small so they can work up the courage to approach you. You're meant to stand in your full radiance, your full power, your full worth, and let them rise to meet you there. If they can't, if they won't, if they're not capable of matching that energy, then they're not your person. Not because they're bad or wrong, but because alignment requires two people operating at similar levels of emotional availability and courage. What's happening right now is a revealing. Their struggle to admit what they want is giving you information. Information about their emotional capacity. Information about their relationship with vulnerability. Information about how they handle fear. Information about whether they're someone who moves toward what they want or away from it. This information is valuable. It's helping you see clearly who you're actually dealing with, beyond the fantasy or the potential. And here's something I want you to really hear: someone's desire for you doesn't obligate you to anything. Just because they want you doesn't mean you have to want them back. Just because they're finally getting brave doesn't mean you have to be available. Just because they're working through their fear doesn't mean you need to wait around for them to complete that process. Your worth isn't determined by whether someone chooses you, it's inherent. And you're allowed to have standards, boundaries, and requirements for what you'll accept in your life. The awakening happening here isn't just theirs, it's yours too. You're waking up to your own power. You're waking up to the reality that you don't need someone else's validation to know your value. You're waking up to the truth that love shouldn't be this complicated, this unclear, this filled with guessing games. You're waking up to the possibility that maybe what you thought you wanted isn't actually what serves your highest good. Some of you are going to watch them finally get brave, finally admit what they feel, finally make their move, and you're going to realize you've moved on. Not out of spite. Not out of revenge. But because during the time they were figuring themselves out, you figured yourself out too. You grew. You evolved. You raised your standards. You clarified your non-negotiables. And the person standing before you, even with all their newfound honesty, doesn't actually match what you now know you need. That's okay. That's more than okay. That's you honoring your own journey. That's you recognizing that windows of opportunity don't stay open forever. That's you understanding that timing matters, and sometimes people miss their moment through no one's fault. It's just what happens when growth occurs at different paces. But for others of you, what's coming is going to feel like everything finally clicking into place. You're going to watch them bridge the gap between their fear and their desire, and it's going to land at exactly the right moment. You're going to see them become the person capable of meeting you where you are. You're going to witness the transformation that had to happen before something real could be built. And when they finally show up, truly show up, you're going to recognize it as worth the wait. Not because waiting is romantic, but because the version of them that arrives will be ready for the version of you that exists now. If you're feeling a shift in your own spirit right now, if you're recognizing your own power in this situation, comment, "I'm awake." The deeper truth here is that you're not at the mercy of someone else's decision about whether to be brave. You're not sitting helplessly on the sidelines hoping they choose you. You're an active participant in your own life, making choices every single day about what you'll accept, what you'll tolerate, what you'll invest in, and what you'll walk away from. Their wanting you is only relevant if you still want them. Their admission only matters if you're still open to receiving it. Their movement toward you only changes things if you haven't already moved on. So while I'm telling you what's happening in their internal world, while I'm helping you see the signs that they want you more than they're admitting, I also need you to stay connected to your own internal world. Stay connected to what you want. Stay connected to what you need. Stay connected to what brings you peace. Stay connected to your timeline, your standards, your vision for your life. Because here's what I'm really seeing for you, beyond this specific situation with this specific person, I'm seeing you stepping into a version of yourself that knows her worth and won't negotiate it away for anyone. I'm seeing you developing the kind of clarity that can't be shaken by someone else's confusion. I'm seeing you building a life so full, so rich, so aligned with your purpose that whether someone chooses to be in it or not becomes less central to your happiness. And ironically, that's often when everything shifts. When you stop needing them to validate you, they can finally see you clearly. When you stop waiting for them, they suddenly realize what they're at risk of losing. When you prioritize yourself, you become magnetic in a way that fear-based distance-keeping can't resist. Not because you're playing games, but because you've become genuinely aligned with your own worth. The awakening isn't just, they want you more than they're admitting, the awakening is, you're worth more than their hesitation suggests, and you're finally starting to believe it. So what do you actually do with all of this understanding? How do you navigate a situation where someone wants you but won't fully admit it? How do you honor both their process and your own needs? Let me give you some practical wisdom you can apply immediately. First, stay rooted in your own clarity, regardless of their confusion. Their mixed signals don't have to create internal chaos for you. You can observe their hot and cold behavior without internalizing it as a statement about your worth. You can notice their struggle without making it mean something about you. When they pull away, you don't have to chase. When they come close, you don't have to make it mean more than it does in that moment. Your emotional stability can't be dependent on their current level of courage. That's not sustainable, and it's not fair to you. Practice saying to yourself, their fear is about them, not about me. Their hesitation is their journey, not my inadequacy. Their process is unfolding at its own pace, and I can honor that without putting my life on hold. This isn't coldness, it's healthy detachment. It's the ability to care about someone while also maintaining your center. Second, communicate your truth without trying to control their response. If you need more clarity, ask for it. If you need to know where you stand, say so. If you need them to make a decision, communicate that timeline. You don't have to sit in ambiguity forever out of fear that asking for clarity will push them away. If asking for what you need pushes someone away, they weren't equipped to give you what you need anyway. Better to know that now than 6 months from now. But here's the key, communicate without attachment to outcome. Say what's true for you. I need to understand what we're doing here. I can't stay in this undefined space indefinitely. I'm willing to give this real space to develop, but I need to see consistent movement, and then let them respond however they respond. Don't try to convince them. Don't make impassioned arguments for why they should choose you. Just state your truth and let it land. Their response will tell you everything you need to know. Someone who genuinely wants you will hear your need for clarity and work to provide it, even if they're scared. Someone who's just enjoying the attention without real intention will make excuses, deflect, or disappear. Both responses are valuable information. Third, watch their patterns, not their words. Anyone can say anything. Words are easy. I'm just not ready for a relationship right now. The timing isn't right. I need to focus on myself. These statements might be true, or they might be comfortable deflections. What tells you the actual truth is what they consistently do. Are they making time for you? Are they showing up when they say they will? Are they protecting your connection even while claiming they need space? Are they treating you with care and consideration? Are their actions moving in the direction of closeness or distance over time? Do they prioritize you even in small ways? Do they remember what matters to you? Do they invest in knowing you better? Patterns over time reveal truth. One conversation where they're vulnerable and open doesn't override months of inconsistency. One beautiful gesture doesn't negate a pattern of disappearing. Look at the trajectory, not the moments. Is the overall movement toward you or away from you, toward honesty or away from it, toward integration or continued compartmentalization? If you're committing right now to watching patterns instead of getting lost in words, type patterns in the comments. Fourth, honor your own timeline, not just theirs. They might need time to work through their fear, and that's valid. But you also have needs, and those are equally valid. You don't have to give someone unlimited time to figure out whether they want to be brave enough to choose you. You're allowed to have an internal deadline after which you close the door on this possibility and move forward with your life. This doesn't have to be harsh or punitive. It's just honest. I'm open to seeing where this could go for the next few months, but I'm not willing to be in limbo indefinitely. I care about you and I'm willing to give this real space, but I also need to see forward movement. I understand your processing, and I'm going to continue living my life fully while you do. If you get to a place of clarity and I'm still available, wonderful. If not, that's okay too. You're not waiting by the phone. You're not putting your life on pause. You're living fully, staying open to possibility, but not attaching your happiness to any particular outcome. This is mature love. This is self-respecting love. Fifth, be willing to walk away if what you need isn't being met. This might be the hardest one, but it's essential. You have to be willing to choose yourself, even if it means walking away from someone you have feelings for. You have to be willing to say, I deserve someone who's certain about me, and mean it. You have to be willing to close doors that aren't opening cleanly. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean what you felt wasn't real. It doesn't mean you're giving up too soon or being impatient. Sometimes it means you're honoring yourself enough to not accept crumbs when you deserve the whole meal. Sometimes it means you're trusting that what's meant for you won't require this much convincing, this much uncertainty, this much emotional labor. And here's what's powerful about being genuinely willing to walk away, it changes the energy entirely. When you're no longer desperate for someone to choose you, when you're truly at peace with whatever happens, when you're connected to your worth independent of their decision, that's when you become unmissable. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've become genuinely hard to get. Because you've raised your standards to match your worth. Sixth, keep your options open. Unless you're in a committed, defined relationship, don't close yourself off to other possibilities. Don't put all your emotional eggs in the basket of someone who's still deciding whether they even want to hold the basket. Stay present to your own life. Stay open to meeting new people. Stay available to connections that might surprise you. This isn't about making anyone jealous or playing games. It's about not artificially limiting yourself while someone else figures themselves out. You might meet someone tomorrow who's clear about what they want, who shows up consistently, who doesn't need months to decide whether you're worth the risk. Don't miss that possibility because you're hyper-focused on someone who's still hesitating. And seventh, trust yourself. You know what feels good and what doesn't. You know the difference between someone who's genuinely working through their fears and someone who's stringing you along. You know when something has real potential and when you're forcing something that doesn't want to grow. You know when to stay and when to go. You know what you need. You know what you won't accept. Trust that knowing. Your intuition has been speaking to you throughout this situation. You've had moments of clarity where you knew exactly what was happening, even if you talked yourself out of it later. Trust those moments. Trust the wisdom of your own heart. Trust that the same force that's guiding them through their process is also guiding you through yours. Trust that you're going to know when it's time to stay open and when it's time to close the door. Trust that you're more equipped to handle this than you think. Before we move into the closing, if this content has given you tools you didn't have before, if it's helped you see your situation more clearly, please consider hitting the super thanks button below. It makes these deep dives possible, and I'm truly grateful, ***. What I want you to walk away with is this: they're wanting you is nice, but it's not everything. They're eventually being brave enough to admit it is nice, but it's not everything. What actually matters is whether the relationship that could be built between you would genuinely serve both people's highest good. What actually matters is whether they can show up in the way that real love requires. What actually matters is whether you still want them by the time they're ready to be wanted. Don't make your worth dependent on their decision. Don't make your happiness contingent on their courage. Don't make your future wait on their timeline. Live your life fully, stay open to genuine connection wherever it appears, and trust that what's meant for you will find you when both parties are actually ready to honor it. Resolution, 1300 words. So here's what's coming. Here's what you're going to see unfold over the next days, weeks, maybe months. They're going to reach a breaking point with their own resistance. The internal pressure we talked about earlier is going to find release. And when it does, you're going to notice a shift in how they show up. It might not be dramatic. It probably won't look like a movie scene. But you'll feel it. You'll notice the change in energy. They might text you something more vulnerable than they usually share. They might create an opportunity to spend real time with you, not just casual encounters. They might ask you a question that reveals they've been thinking about you more than they've let on. They might make a comment that acknowledges, even indirectly, that what's between you is more than nothing. They're going to start closing the gap between what they feel and what they show. For some of you, this is going to lead somewhere beautiful. You're going to watch someone become brave enough to honor what they feel. You're going to see them transform from someone who was controlled by fear into someone who's willing to risk being seen. You're going to witness the moment when their desire for connection becomes stronger than their need for self-protection. And if you're still available, if you're still interested, if the timing is right, something real is going to begin to build. For others of you, their bravery is going to arrive too late. You're going to have moved on. Not because you didn't care, not because what you felt wasn't real, but because during the time they were working through their fear, you were doing your own work. You were growing. You were clarifying. You were raising your standards. And the person who finally shows up won't actually match what you now know you need. That's okay. That's more than okay. That's you honoring your own evolution. And for some of you, their admission is going to arrive at exactly the right time. You're going to see them step forward just when you were about to step back. You're going to watch the timing click into place in a way that feels orchestrated by something bigger than both of you. You're going to experience that moment when two people finally align, in their readiness, in their clarity, in their availability, in their courage. When that happens, you'll know. It won't require convincing yourself. It won't require overriding your intuition. It'll feel right in your bones. Type, I receive this, if you're open to whatever unfolds, whether it's them stepping forward, you moving on, or the timing finally aligning perfectly. But here's what I really want you to understand as we close: your story doesn't depend on what they do next. Your happiness doesn't hinge on their decision. Your worth isn't validated or invalidated by whether they're brave enough to reach for you. You're already whole. You're already valuable. You're already deserving of love that's clear, consistent, and courageous. What they do next will reveal who they are, not who you are. Their behavior is information about their capacity, their courage, their emotional availability, not about your worthiness to be chosen. So watch what unfolds with curiosity rather than desperation. Watch with openness rather than attachment. Watch with wisdom rather than need. And while you're watching them, don't forget to keep building your own life. Don't forget to invest in your dreams, your growth, your purpose. Don't forget to nurture the relationships that are already clear and reciprocal. Don't forget to celebrate how far you've come. Don't forget to honor the person you're becoming through all of this. Don't forget that this situation, regardless of how it ends, is teaching you something important about yourself. You're learning about your capacity to hold space for someone's process while also honoring your own needs. You're learning about the difference between patience and self-abandonment. You're learning about when to stay open and when to close the door. You're learning to trust your intuition even when your heart wants something different. You're learning that love isn't supposed to be this unclear, this complicated, this full of guessing. You're learning what you will and won't accept. These lessons have value that extends far beyond this one situation. Some of you needed this message to help you understand what's been happening. Some of you needed it to give you permission to stop waiting. Some of you needed it to remind you of your worth. Some of you needed it to prepare you for what's coming. Wherever you are in this journey, I'm sending you strength, clarity, and an unshakable knowing of your value. They want you more than they're willing to admit. That's true. But the more important truth: you're worth more than hesitation. You're worth more than mixed signals. You're worth more than someone's internal battle with vulnerability. You're worth clear, consistent, courageous love. And whether that comes from this person or someone else, whether it comes tomorrow or next year, I'm believing with you that it's coming. If this message touched your soul, if it gave you something you needed to hear, please like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss future messages. And if you feel led, the super thanks option below helps me continue creating content like this. I see you. I honor your journey. And I'm believing for your absolute highest good. Watch what they do next. But more importantly, watch what you do next. Watch how you honor yourself. Watch how you stay connected to your worth. Watch how you keep living fully regardless of their decision. Watch how you grow through this experience. That's the story that actually matters. That's the transformation that will change everything. You've got this. You're stronger than you know. You're clearer than you realize. And whatever unfolds next, you're going to navigate it with wisdom, grace, and an unshakable connection to who you are. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep choosing yourself. Keep honoring your worth. Keep believing in love that doesn't require this much convincing. It exists. And it's on its way to you.